With winds gusting at 75 kilometres per hour and firefighting resources stretched to the limit, there was little some Terralba residents could do but run. This racecourse roadhouse was completely destroyed. Other homes were threatened.
We're about 2 minutes from you, mate.
Well, hurry up, we might be able to save this house, over.
Yeah, we're going as fast as we can, Stuart.
Temperatures were in the high 30s today, and the tinder dry conditions meant the worst possible scenario for firefighters, who are battling large-scale breakouts between Barnsley and Killingworth and at Terralba. Crews from the area's 6 fire units were joined by bushfire volunteers, and council workers and equipment were even forced into service. A large-scale fire front swept through bushland behind Railway Street, Terralba, threatening houses on 3 blocks. At times it seems this battle is unwinnable. As fast as they can put one fire out, another spot fire threatens another home. Spot fire started when burning debris blew into gardens. While firefighters battled the main blaze almost a kilometre away, airborne ash sparked this fire. Residents, police officers and council workers coped with the problem that fire crews were simply too busy to deal with.
It wasn't exactly a pleasant stroll down memory lane. Keith Fairbairn and Stuart Walsham today returned to the scene of their worst nightmares. Called in to fight Wednesday's raging bushfires near Terralba, the pair spent a terrifying hour trapped in this drain as the blaze raged around them.
Just like a bad dream, and it was something you couldn't imagine, but unless you were really here to see it.
A combined 11 years of training allowed them to remain calm throughout the ordeal, but they admit it was a life and death situation.
We looked out the both ends of the tunnel. It was just black, just like night. And then we looked out again, it was just a red glow at both ends. And then the heat and the sparks were coming through the tunnel.
Was there ever a time when you thought you might have been gone?
Oh, we had visions of that.
Incredibly, both volunteers returned to their unit and continued fighting the blaze. Eventually, heat exhaustion took its toll.
Later on in the day, another couple of hours working up the end of Watkins Lane and the other streets, I just had enough, couldn't breathe. I just collapsed on the side of the road.
For Stuart's wife Sue, it was another night spent at home fearing the worst.
Even at home we couldn't breathe, so imagine what it was like for Stuart and Keith in the drain.
Did you ever nag him to give it all up?
Yes, I'd love for him to pull out, but he's too dedicated, he won't.
Ford versus Holden always conjures up fiery battles at the hands of hellmen, and the super sedans rekindled that rivalry in fabulous fashion at the weekend. John Brown in a brand new car claimed first points for Ford.
Look at Don McEwen chasing out after John Brown as they come to the checkered flag, but John Brown's going to come down and take the checker. John Brown is first, Max Bayesian is second.
Peter Garrett levelled the score in the Tooheys Stars dash with a brilliant nail-biting drive to the checkered flag.
Peter Garrett comes down main straight away, followed by John Brown and Ron Pine, and that's the way they take the checkered flag. Garrett, Brown and Pine.
In the Super Sedan final, ISP Masters champion Don McEwen pushed a bit too hard, slamming into the concrete wall, sustaining considerable damage, but he was able to continue. The race going to Cessnock's Ron Pine. In other action, the modified Hot Rod Star Sprint came to a sudden stop with a multiple pile-up. The street stockers were more intent on trying to bust through the wall than go straight.
Bang into the wall, Brian Brumby.
And not to be outdone, the stock cars tried, in vain, to drive on their roofs.
About 30,000 people are employed in the manufacturing sector in the Hunter region. However, a recent review indicates that another 750 people, on top of the thousands already unemployed, may lose their jobs in the next 12 months.
We don't see that employment will increase in the next, well, certainly not this year, and probably not until the first 6 months of next year.
The survey indicates that it is the larger companies that are cutting costs and restructuring their workforces, but the news is not all bad.
What the companies are telling us is that they are starting to spend more money now on plant and equipment, and that's a good sign because it means that the companies believe that now is the best time to get value for money, and so they're buying their equipment, and therefore I think you could reasonably say that the recession is bottoming out.
Meanwhile, the Chamber of Manufacturers has condemned the planned general strike on Wednesday.
To have a general strike is going to cost the community far more than it's going to hurt the government. I think the government will generally ignore the fact that there's a strike.
It's the 7th occasion that Lake Macquarie has recognised the achievements of their sportsmen and women, along with 2 special awards. Marilyn Urain, the hard-working secretary of the Macquarie Shores Athletics Club, was named the Administrator of the Year for her tireless efforts, while Joseph Walker was presented with the Disabled Athlete of the Year. Joseph won 4 gold medals and broke 4 world records at the Disabled Olympics. Jared Anthony, a young swimmer who has broken 18 Australian and New South Wales records, plus represented his country during the year, was the popular choice for Junior Sportsperson of the Year. And then Peter Morris had the honour of announcing the major award winner.
91 is to announce to you the winner, to make the presentation. The winner is Mark Sargent, Knights Rugby League.
Sargent's performances on the Kangaroo Tour earned him the coveted title of Lake Macquarie Sportsperson of the Year for 1990-91, and accepting the award was Sargent's father Don.
The aircraft slammed into light scrub about 25 kilometres south of Wollombi shortly after 7 p.m. There was no indication from the pilot that anything was amiss. The single-engine Grumman, owned by the Aerobatic School at Bankstown, was on a routine flight from Coffs Harbour to Sydney. The pilot radioed his position over Scone at 6:50 p.m. The next report was from locals around the scene who heard the aircraft descending into the bush.
All we first heard was the roar of the plane, and the next minute you could hear the trees coming down. The engine was really revving, as it was coming down.
Emergency crews from the Cessnock Rescue Brigade were first on the scene. The aircraft had disintegrated on impact, scattering debris throughout the surrounding scrub. The stricken plane cut a swathe through about 400 metres, clipping trees and bouncing before coming to a final halt. Both occupants were thrown from the wreckage.
There was an injured person approximately 4 metres from the wreckage, the main part of the wreckage, and the deceased female approximately 10 metres from the injured male person.
Despite shocking injuries, the young pilot was still alive when rescuers arrived, but died just minutes before paramedics could reach the scene. An investigation is being conducted by the Civil Aviation Authority. At this stage, they're not prepared to rule out the possibility of pilot error. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It's the 5th year of the Milbrodale Classic, a leg of the New South Wales Off-Road Championships, and like always, it was a case of putting the foot down. Dick Johnson came up against a long list of off-road big guns, but no one could match man of the mountain, Maitland's Barry Johnson, who trounced the 6-kilometre course in just 4 minutes. That's topping speeds of 120 kilometres per hour. Unlike the high-profile touring car races, these drivers took to the course purely for the challenge. The winners didn't receive a cent in prize money.
In 5 weeks, Marion Reeves will complete her final year of medical school. In a sense, she's beaten the odds. Although her academic performance was excellent at high school, it wasn't quite enough to make it into the top percentile of students who traditionally go into medicine.
How long have you wanted to be a doctor?
Ever since I was a small child, probably. I had a few changes of plans when I was at school, but in my final year of school I decided that I wanted to do medicine.
But Marion was just what Newcastle University medical faculty was looking for. She had that extra ingredient they wanted, the ability to communicate with people and personal dedication, which were put above a few percentage points on the academic scale. The university has also opened its doors to graduates, those who finished a degree in another discipline and have had some time outside school to consider their decision to go into medicine.
We have very good reports about our students, and especially the way they communicate and relate to their patients and solve problems, and those are the things we look for.
Dean of the Medical Faculty, Professor John Hamilton, says the innovative policy has clearly proved successful, with at least 3 other leading universities in Australia now seeking graduate entrants.
It's obvious that many of the things we have pioneered are now being introduced elsewhere.
With the John Hunter Hospital's accreditation as a teaching hospital under review next year, Professor Hamilton says the medical faculty's pioneering work puts it in a strong position for the future.
The potential is there. We've just got to attend to our task with teaching and make plans for the future.
Okay.
Australian Cooperative Foods represents around 200 dairy farmers from the Hunter region. Today, 12 months of work came to fruition with the opening of the region's new distribution centre. Previously, packaged products were put out from 4 locations, including this site in Hunter Street, but over time they have been closed to make way for the Cardiff plant. The facility services around 90 vendors, who then deliver the products to corner stores, supermarkets and houses.
Currently we're putting through about 550,000 litres, and that'll build through the end of the year to about 600,000 litres per week.
But the facility has a capacity twice that. The temperature of the milk is maintained at 3 degrees from the moment it leaves the factory until it reaches the shelves of the corner store. In opening the centre today, Agriculture Minister Ian Armstrong praised the initiative of ACF, but said the industry must be willing to take on new markets.
We've got Asia with the fastest increase in standard living in the world today, just on our doorstep. And it's very competitive. We've got South Africa in there marketing dairy products, New Zealand's marketing dairy products, and unless we make an aggressive run in there, we might miss out on some of that market share.
They assembled at Newcastle University to hear from local and national experts on the developments in waste management and its future direction. They say that despite progress in technologies used to dispose of society's garbage, the greatest change is needed in the home. They believe if households could reduce the volume of rubbish, many of the nation's disposal problems would be greatly reduced. The seminar included discussions on topics ranging from hazardous waste to regional recycling strategies.
The site was a hive of activity, and the busiest bees were 6 young ladies. Plucked from behind the counters of the St George Building Society, they were thrown into the deep end of the building industry, given just 1 day to erect a complete house frame. The incentive was a donation promised to the Hunter Life Education Unit. The rookies turned in a riveting performance, with the experts always close by to lend a helping hand. A hot day's work was interrupted by plenty of traditional smokos, and opinion was divided about the merits of life as a labourer.
It's quite good, exciting, different to being behind the terminal at work.
But it's fun for a day.
Pretty hard work. No, it's good. Really enjoying it.
Thinking about it, perhaps a career change?
Oh, well, I was talking to the foreman earlier and he suggested that, we could have a future here, us girls.
Established in Egypt in 1916, the 14 Field Squadron has since carved a proud niche in Newcastle's history since relocating here in 1948. Today, the affectionately dubbed Old and Bold Brigade showed current members they could still cut it on the parade ground. The point wasn't lost on anyone present.
Think of it, 1,000 years of service on this parade today.
Time may have taken its toll on some once fine physiques, but the years haven't eroded any of that army precision. With military spirit thick in the air, it might have been the perfect time for a recruiting drive, but it was more a time to reflect on a proud past as the squadron's oldest member cut an impressive birthday cake.
I did have the feeling that this squadron was doing its share of what a lot of young Australians should be doing and continue to do, and I was very happy to be a part of it.
Vandals broke into the school sometime over the weekend by smashing a window. After vandalising this classroom, they then set fire to the furniture and left it to burn. Luckily, the fire burnt itself out, saving perhaps many more classrooms. Police are interviewing students at the school. Meanwhile, today's HSC music exam went ahead as scheduled. No classes were interrupted.
But nothing will save your ears if you stand too close to the Central Coast's Graham Keating, officially declared Australia's loudest town crier. Graham also was voted Australia's Champion of Champions to add to his World Town Crying title won in Britain 3 weeks ago.
For the past 25 years, the Tocal Agricultural College has been the training ground for the young people who have formed the backbone of the rural sector. But the students assert that backbone is about to break. The state government will introduce a $2,000 annual tuition fee next year. For residential students, that means a 40% hike in fees. For those living off campus, a staggering 220%. The 1991 first-year class says the fees will devastate its numbers.
Could we have a show of hands of the students who will not be able to afford to come and complete their education next year if the tuition fee is imposed? We will lose most of our present first-year students next year.
These young people off the land say their parents are already hurting enough with the recession and the drought, but with the introduction of this tuition fee, many of the students say not only will they be forced to leave the college, but also the farms that have been in their families for generations.
far as I'm concerned, there is no idea in my mind of sending my parents broke just to send me to college.
He's going to really put a squeeze down on what he's going to get on the table for food, how my parents, my family are going to get by the next 12 months.
The Minister for Agriculture, Ian Armstrong, says the tuition fee is necessary.
Unfortunately, we do have to have a recovery, and just to bring it up to parity with other colleges, it's nothing unusual at all.
But John Priestley says the fee makes no sense economically because it will put more young people on the dole and keep them off the land.
We'll be looking at a sharp increase in our average age of Australian agriculturalists. This I don't think our economy can afford.
Scott Bevan, NBN News. For the 60 people who use the Rankin Park hydrotherapy pool every day, this facility is a vital tool in allowing them to fight back to fitness. But the Back Pain Support Group says the Health Administrator, Dr Tim Smythe, has tipped cold water on its push for a new pool at the Royal Newcastle Hospital. In a meeting with Dr Smythe, the group wasn't given any indication when work on the pool would begin.
We're hoping for a better answer from Dr Smythe in the future.
Mr Noble says with the Hunters Health Service in crisis, he's not even sure if the hydrotherapy pool at the Royal will be installed. But he says the facility is badly needed.
The pool here at Rankin Park is overloaded, and there's such a long waiting list to try and get into this pool. And there's only 2 other pools in Newcastle, and I think they're in the same position.
Almost $750,000 in public money has been raised for the pool, which the group says is currently in the hands of the Hunter Area Health Service. But the back pain sufferers are still waiting for answers as to when that money and the interest it's raised will be used.
They won't sort of give an answer of what's happening to it. All they give me an answer that it is still available and it's been set aside for this purpose of the hydrotherapy pool at the Royal Newcastle Hospital.
Dr Smythe declined to be interviewed.
More than 900 gymnasts from 39 country clubs across the state took part in the event. Gunnedah Gymnastics Club won the women's team event for the 7th consecutive year. Wagga proved far too strong for their competition, dominating the men's team title. A section of the sport that is growing in popularity at a rapid rate is rhythmic gymnastics. The local Taree club triumphed over their opposition.
While Catholic congregations the world over have sung heaven's praises, it's been left up to the clergy to decide the church's direction. But in the Maitland Diocese, that's about to change. For the first time in 35 years, the diocese is organising a synod, which is a conference of sorts to plan for the church's future. But unlike the 1956 synod, it's not just the priests who'll be presiding.
This synod involves the whole diocesan community. The earlier synod involved only the clergy, and in fact its documentation was in Latin.
The bells have tolled a change in not only language, but also approach to canvassing people's opinions. The diocese distributed a questionnaire among its 120,000 Catholics and collated the results in a discussion paper for the synod.
Perhaps the main thrust of the discussion paper is the greater involvement of lay people in the life of the local church community.
The paper emphasises the need for clearer communication among church members, but Cessnock parishioners who protested against the sale of 2 of its churches earlier this year say the clergy was silent throughout the furore.
Hopefully we'll demonstrate the best way to go about communication with this process, and perhaps some of the mistakes we've made in the past won't happen again.